Hello and welcome to my channel. This is a beginner's beading tutorial and how to work with centers or cabs. So the first thing we'll need is some E6000 glue, and we use this to glue down our center onto our stiff felt. You'll also need beads. These are size 10 Czech beads from Sunday Lace Creations. You'll also need some thread. This is size B NYMO thread that I got from bedazzle.ca. You'll also need some scissors, some pliers to attach your earring hooks, like this, and also this is our backing material. I got this from a Facebook beading group. Okay, let's get started with beading. So taking my size 12 needle and my NYMO thread, I threaded my needle and then I'm going to knot just one end of the thread. You can double your thread if you would like. I prefer to just use singled, that way it goes a lot further and I don't have to be buying thread all the time. So make sure you have a good double or triple knot, and then we're just going to trim off some of the excess. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start by coming up through the bottom, and I want to come up just about 1 millimeter away from my center. I don't want to be right up against it because then my beads will be crowded and they're not going to lay as flat. So you can see I have a very small gap where I am coming through. So pull your thread through and make sure that your knot is big enough that it doesn't get pulled through the fibers. Now I'm going to load up my needle with some beads. So we're going to start with 6 beads. I find it's a good amount to start as a beginner. I personally use more like 9 to 12, but work with whatever is easiest for you. So now using my thumb, I'm going to pull the thread around the center so that it takes the shape like this. I'm also going to push my beads in place towards the beginning, but if I push them too far, you see that that first bead starts to turn, so we don't want it to be that tight. Just push it so there's not any extra thread and that your beads are laying flat. And then we're going to tack down just a tiny bit past the last bead. Again, if you go right up against that bead, your bead is going to twist sideways a little bit and it's not going to be flat. So it's important that this step has really good tension, so you pull it nice and tight. So what I do is I use my left hand to hold onto the thread underneath, and sometimes you can also wrap it around your finger if you want. But I find just holding it with your hand works well. So now we're going to begin tacking down between the beads. So I'm going to go every couple beads, so I like to go every 2 or 3. Since we're just laying down 6, I'll go every 2 beads. So I'm going to pull it up all the way through like this, and again we're going to make sure it's really nice and tight at this step because this is our foundation. So now I'm just going to put my needle on the other side of the beads and pull it through, and I'm just going to pull it through gently. So you want it really tight when you first tack the beads down, and then when you're tacking between the beads to go nice and lightly. Because we're going to tack a couple times, this is going to keep our tension so we don't have to pull super tight. Like that. Okay, so our last step of tacking down this section is to come up through the felt at the very beginning where we started and to put our needle through all the beads. This is a back stitch, and we're going to repeat this again and again throughout the process. So you can see I just went through some of the beads and now I'll go through the rest. Just because it's a circle, sometimes we can't put our needle through in one go. And now we're ready to add our next set of beads. So again, I'm going to load up my needle. For the rest of this, I'm going to use more beads just to speed up the process. I like to use 9, and then I'm going to tack between every 3. Again, just do whatever you're comfortable with. If you need to, you can tack between every single bead, but I find especially with these kinds of projects, it's not necessary. So now we will just tack down again, keeping that tension nice and tight, and then going through and tacking between our beads. If you're enjoying this video so far, please give it a thumbs up, and I'd love to hear what kind of tutorials that you would be interested in me making. So please comment any ideas of tutorials, or if you have any questions about this tutorial or my materials or supplies, please let me know. You can also check out my TikTok for mini tutorials and little tips, as well as seeing some of the different projects I've made. So now that we've tacked our section, we're going to do a back stitch again, but this time I'm going to go 1 or 2 beads in our last section and go through all of them. So you can see I'm coming up around the 5th bead, and then we're going through all of the rest of them. That's why it's called a back stitch, because we're going back to the section before the current one, and we're connecting it to this one. Like that. There we go. And then we're just going to keep repeating that until we get all the way around our center. So you can see I'm at the end now. So the important part here is making sure we have enough beads that there's no gaps, but not too many beads so that our beads don't lay flat. So you can see I've loaded up a few here, and it is fitting quite nicely. Like this, but there looks like there is a little gap. So what I'm going to do is look for a little bead. So the nice thing with Czech beads is that they are not 100% consistent, which is actually really beneficial when we're doing flat beadwork, because sometimes we need a bead that is just a little bit smaller or a little bit larger than the rest of the beads for it to fit properly. So you can see right here, I've got my small bead and a regular size bead just for comparison, and we're going to use the smaller one to fill that last spot. So I'm just making sure my first bead is pushed all the way over and that we can connect them. So you can see that's much better. So I'll just zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So similar to the back stitch, what we're going to do is just go through those first 2 beads at the beginning to connect it all together. Like that, and then I'm just going to tack on the inside close to the center. And make sure to pull it tight, and then we can go through and tack the rest of the beads and do our back stitch. So those are kind of the first steps of the process. For the next part of this tutorial, I'll do in a separate video. So that one is also posted, and you can go and click on that one. So again, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already, please subscribe for more tutorials.